Hi, welcome back to part 4 of this black crappie fish carving project. This is going to be a short video because I inadvertently deleted video files showing me mount the fins. Goof. It's not the first time I've done it, but it's pretty self-explanatory, easy to do. I've got other videos that shows the process, and but I'll explain it here real quick. All I've done was I mounted the fins using epoxy, and then I used epoxy putty, which is a two-part resin, putty resin, to blend the fins to the body. I also used it to form the muscle structure of the pelvic fins and the pectoral fins. And here's on this side. And I used a scale burning tip to impress the scales into the putty before it dried. I also used it to mount the eyes and form the sclera of the eyeballs around the eyes and the eye socket.
If you notice the thin little gray line around the base of the fins and the body, that's the epoxy putty that I use to blend the fin to the body. And right now I'm just taking those little small diamond burrs and blending the fin more into the fin rays. And epoxy putty is just a two-part putty that's two-part resin. It's a putty that you mix together, and it stays viable for about 20-30 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, and then it hardens up pretty quick. I've got another video that I'll leave a link to here, and it shows the process, and that's part of the footage that I deleted accidentally. Sorry about that. But it's pretty easy to do. You can use a wet finger to smooth it out, or a wet paintbrush, and it sets up in about, it's viable for about 20 minutes, and then it sets up pretty solid within an hour or so, and then I usually let it set overnight before I do this process here.
Okay, so this is where the footage started that I deleted. So this footage is that I shot on my phone for doing the YouTube short on the process. But all I'm doing here is I'm putting a little piece of epoxy putty in the eye socket, and then I press the eye into place. Sometimes you got to put more in or take some out to make it fit right. But you just want it to kind of squeeze out around the back of the eye, and that'll hold it in place. I'm also going to be using little strings of it to put around the eye on the socket to seal in the gaps around the eye socket, and I'll show you that here in just a second. So I put a little piece around the top of the eye to help form the sclera, and I just use a paintbrush or a wet fingertip to smooth it down and just build it up to form that sclera and to fill in the gaps around it. At this point I can still move the eye a little bit, but I try to get it set in place in the first time so that it's angled right and set in the right direction, or looking the right direction. doing a fish that has a pupil that has the teardrop shape, you want to make sure the point of that teardrop faces forward, and you also want it to be semi-level. The eye don't rotate very much in the socket up or down like clock hands or clockwise or counterclockwise, but it will tilt. It can tilt up and down a little bit, but to make it look natural, you need to have that eye point facing forward, or the point of the pupil facing forward and level. You want it horizontal. You don't have to worry about that on a crappie because the pupils aren't pointed, they're more round. But I do have the bars that run up and down through the eye that need to be vertical. Here I'm applying a thick super glue to mount the fins. A lot of people will use Bondo or epoxy, but I find that super glue works fine. And one of the things I missed in doing this short in this footage is applying the epoxy putty around the fin. But again, I'll show you that in another clip. But I just put it in place. I pre-fit it and then put it in place. And then you saw me spraying some quick set spray on it. And once it starts to kick in, it's there. But I use this preset spray or fast set spray to help set it quicker. So I repeat the process on all the fins. I test fit them before I put them in to make sure I got them in the right position that I want them to be, the position that I carved them for. Because once you put them in with this super glue, they're there. They're not coming out unless you'll have to recarve it. So just make sure if you're using super glue to be very careful and test fit it before you put it in place and make sure it's where it's supposed to be. But I use the epoxy putty to fill in all around the fin's base to blend it in with the body. And then as you saw at the front of the video, after it sets, I use a little diamond ball bit to kind of blend it all in with the fin rays. And then I put pieces on the pectoral and pelvic fins to build up the muscle on the fin itself. And I blend it in with the body by using my finger dipped in water and a brush to blend it. And then I use a scale burning tip, not plugged in, just the tip alone. And before the putty sets up, I can impress the scales into that section of the fin, into the putty. Then after it sets up, it's there. Again, I apologize for deleting the footage and not showing that, but like I said, I will leave links at the top here to 2 other videos that shows that process. I also want to take a second here to tell you guys about Bearwood Supply Company. I'm now an affiliate with them, and they carry all kinds of carving equipment, supplies, full line of cuts-all burrs, bits, diamond bits, carbide bits. They have coalwood burners and marathon rotary tools, micro rotary tools. So, and everything you need to get started. So if you're looking for something, check them out at bearwood.com. And if you use my name, Danny, as a promo code, you can get 5% off all your purchases. So go over and check them out. Okay, that's going to do it for the process of gluing the fins in. And this is where I would start putting the epoxy putty around the base of the fins. So again, check that out in these other videos, and that'll show you how to do that. But as you saw, I was working on blending in these fins with a little bit of carbon a while ago. I took down the eye sockets just a little bit because they protruded out just a little bit too much. The cheeks needed to come down a little bit anyway after looking at it for a few days. And my next step is going to be to seal it with lacquer and thin down 50-50 with the lacquer thinner. And what that does is it completely seals the wood, and by thinning it down, it soaks it in and sucks it into the wood real good, and gets down deeper into the grain. And then after that, after it's set for 24 hours, then I'll come back and I'll use gesso, white gesso, to gesso the whole thing, and then it'll be on to painting. And all gesso is, it's an acrylic carrier with it's either got gypsum powder in it, like chalk dust, or it has marble dust. I think the more expensive brands have a real fine marble dust in it, and then the cheaper versions have the gypsum in it. And I use the cheaper version; it works just as good. But gesso is the same thing that's used to prime artist canvas with. It just gives the paint something to adhere to and hold on to, and it also acts as a sealant on top of the lacquer. But it just preps it for painting. But when I come back in part 5 painting, you'll see that it's going to be completely white. But I appreciate y'all watching. If you have any questions or comments about any of the processes that I do, you can leave them for me in the comment section below. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if you like these videos, and I'll see you on part 5 when I paint this beast.